Hello and welcome back to the channel. On today's video, I'm going to give you 3 comedy writing ideas. And if you bring these into your comedy writing, I guarantee you really great results. So let's get started. What we're going to cover today is this to surprise your audience. We're going to talk a little bit more about that. We're going to use the rule of 3. I'm going to talk a lot about that, different perspectives of what the rule of 3 means in comedy writing. And I'm also going to talk about the power of being as specific as you possibly can. And this will also create humor. And before I get into these, the overall thing we're trying to create here is a humorous set with punchlines. Because what I see people doing a lot is giving the audience information, loads of information, in order to get to one punchline that finishes off that piece or that section of material. And that's not what we want. We want them to keep them laughing throughout all the informative bits of material, and then yes, we knock them dead with that final punchline to close the section. So what I've been doing is I've been sending you positive critique videos to your performances on this channel. So I've been receiving your links and sending you back half an hour, 40-minute videos of me doing my positive critique, giving you all ideas. If you haven't got that service by me yet and you're interested, I do think it will benefit you greatly. The information in how to do that is in the information box, or the description box. It's also a really good way for you to be able to support the channel. So if you're interested in me critiquing your live performance, it has to be a live performance in front of an audience, then I would love to do it. Videos are up to 10 minutes long. You can send it to me and I will send you back something that is worthwhile. So the reason I bring that up is, one, to promote it, and two, I've noticed in doing that video for the viewers that these are the kind of ideas that are coming up time and time again that I think all my viewers can benefit from. So we're going to start off with surprising your audience. What we're going to do is, rather than just say your opinion on the thing it is you do in your set. So let's say you're talking about what you do for work, and then what you find funny about that usually closes that section. What we want to do is surprise the audience. Now, easier said than done, and the more we do this, the easier it's going to be in the long run. But if we start these difficult writing ideas at the beginning, obviously it's going to get easier to us quicker. So what I want you to do is write down all of the things you say in your set. Just write them down out of context, all of the single pieces of information you say. And what I want you to do then is, let's say you have something you say about your job. I want you to write down a different opinion on that one topic, and then a punchline for that opinion. And what you're going to do in the future is you're just going to take away the different opinion. You're going to have a statement and a punchline that is from a different perspective of how that one piece of material, how you see it. So if you have a hobby of doing something on the weekend, I want you to write that down, and then I want you to write down a punchline under it, something maybe someone doesn't agree, or maybe someone doesn't like that thing, or maybe that thing is not good because of this. Obviously, you're going to come up with it in your own way, in your own style. I want you to write down a punchline, something that, well, if you didn't like what I do for a hobby, then you would think this. And I want you to get there in as quick of a way as possible, in as playful and humorous a way as possible. That way, it covers a whole thing of, well, I do this, and then the punchline comes, and it's unexpected because you're seeing it from another point of view, and it's up to you to try and connect those pieces of material together. Some will be very, very difficult to do, and they're obviously the ones we're not going to say on stage, but by doing the very difficult ones in writing, we get better at them. And the easy ones, the ones that just roll out and we just put it down on paper very, very quickly, they're the keepers for the set. We take that and we put it right into our set. So now in our set, we have some little piece of information about what we do for a living, or our relationship, if we're married, or all those things in your own way. And now we have something funny to say about them that's a little bit more obscure because we're looking at it from a different point of view. Let's get deeper and continue with this, but we're also going to move on to number 2, which is so important. It's the rule of 3. One of the most important techniques in writing is the rule of three. I'm always telling my viewers on the feedback video to stay longer in material. Try not to cover as much topics as possible. It's just too much for you to remember, and more importantly and more damaging to your set, it's too much for an audience to digest. We have to remember, go easy on the audience with the information, because it's the jokes we want them to hear. We want them to be on board with the joke. So how do we do that? We use the rule of three. And this can be done, I think, in two ways. The most common way you're taught about the rule of three is to give them two pieces of information and follow it up with a third section, which is the punchline, which is the humorous section. So we tell them one thing about themselves, we tell them one thing about ourselves, and then another thing about ourselves that's slightly connected, right? And then the third thing is either something obscure, absurd, offensive, but it's also connected in a funny way to the two other things we told them. How many times can you do this in your set? The answer is pretty much it's unlimited. Every time you have any single piece of information, right, that's told to an audience, and you follow it up with another piece of information, there is a hidden punchline in there. So where is it you work, right? So that's one piece of information. I work this place. And then a second thing, it's bang, bang, bang. More information about that. And the third thing is a funny thing to connect both the first and the second piece of information together. What are those two connections that we can make fun of? And then that's a whole section. Now I'm going to give you more theory on the rule of three. We can use this theory in a different way that's going to get more laughs. Instead of telling them a little piece of information and a second piece of information followed by a punchline, there is nothing wrong with that format. If that's what you've been doing, continue doing. If it's working for you, great. But also try and incorporate this other way of looking at this one technique, the same technique. What we're going to do is we're going to tell them one piece of information, and we're going to give them three humorous points of view of that single piece of information. That's going to force you to get funny and stay funny for longer, because it's the comedian that's going to get consistent laughs off less topics. That's the one that's going to be remembered more fondly than the comedian who gets much less laughs off covering many topics, like a comedian covering 5 topics and only gets a laugh at the punchline at the end of every section, at the end of every piece of information, long-winded piece of information they say. We don't want that. We want to keep pockets of laughter throughout the entire set. And a really good way of doing that, of forcing yourself to do that, is stick to one piece of information. I'm married. Okay, what is it that I can tell you about my marriage that's also going to result in a laugh? It's not just, well, my wife thinks this and she's that and we're this age and we've been married for this amount of time. No. That's not very important to the audience. An audience are only going to listen to you if you reward them with laughter. So you're married. What more piece of information can you say about being married that's also going to result in a joke? Again, up to your style and in your way. And again, people are always saying to me, like, I need much more kind of examples. You don't. You don't need any more examples. You need to just get writing. You need to write it out. What is the funny things? All of the funny things you can think of. And these, in return, are also ways that we are telling the audience more information about us. We're just doing so by only being funny. There's still information in there, but the humor is what's coming first. And they don't even know they're learning information about us, rather than us just thinking, oh, I got this killer punchline at the end of all these sections of information. But if I don't say all these sections of information, then that punchline isn't going to work. Well, if a punchline leads all those pieces of information, then the punchline isn't worthy of it. We need to keep them laughing continuously, and the only way we're going to do that is to force the jokes out. So a rule that you should follow with the rule of three is to, every time you have one piece of information, try and get 3 different punchlines after it, as well as telling them more bits about that information. And then we move on to one other completely different topic, and we say that thing about it, and then we have 3 punchlines to it. I guarantee it, if you start to write like this, and you start to act like the comic that every time you tell them one piece of information, you get them laughing, they're going to listen to you so intently when they need to, because they know they're going to be rewarded down the road with a joke. And the last thing I want to talk about is the power of being as specific as possible. What I see my viewers do is, again in the feedback videos, I cannot stress how good this is for you. What I see people doing is they tell the audience a little piece of information about themselves, and then they move on, or they don't describe it in as much detail, and therefore when the joke hits, and sometimes the joke is a little bit absurd, it's absurd in nature and it gets a nice reaction, but there's so much more humor and tension to be built in being way more specific about the information. And what this does is well, yes, it builds tension, but it gets the comedian used to playing with that tension. That's what a comedian does. It's always about the tension and breaking it with laughter. But not only do we need to be learning how to deliver a joke, we also need to learn how to stand in the room and really on purpose create tension that an audience finds uncomfortable. Because if we can only create tension if we can only break tension with a punchline if we build the correct amount of tension. So by being more descriptive, we're going to start to get pockets of laughter even without doing actual jokes, even without creating punchlines. Because the more descriptive you can be about something, and I mean really go descriptive and really paint the picture as clear as possible for the audience, and let that energy sit in the room, and then getting to the punchline, well, it's going to be really humorous. So if we can connect all these things together, it's going to be much easier to surprise our audience with the direction we're going if they have a full understanding of where it is we want them to go. And by using the rule of 3 in this, once we do give them the laughter, we can give them 3 pockets of laughter and then move on to something else that's descriptive. And again, the tension will be created correctly because they know and trust us that we're going to get them laughing again. So that's the relationship, and that's the power on why these 3 particular techniques work so well together. I hope this little quick video, or as quick as I could make it today, was really beneficial to you. And what I want this video to do is to get you really motivated to go and do another writing session. Look back at your material. Where can you be more surprising? Where can you get more descriptive? And most important of all, where can you add 3 punchlines after one single piece of information? I guarantee if you look over your page, if you look over your material, there's going to be so many places you can add 3 whole punchlines that are just hidden beneath those words, ready to come out and ready to be said on stage. Well, there we go. I hope this one has benefited you. Get in the description box, email me. I'd love to check out your material and help you out and point you in a direction that you're already going in, but maybe you need a kick up the ass to get there a bit faster. All right, see you in the next video.